Hello ladies and gentlemen. Video game history has always fascinated me, especially things that don't seem to be explainable, such as hardcore mode in gaming. What is the deal with hardcore? Seriously, where does it come from? What is it? And why is it so popular? For the last month, I have been doing research into these questions. And this video will be one of many video game history series I'll be adding to my channel. To begin, let's look at the origins of both the word and the idea. So what are the origins of hardcore? Well, the word itself isn't anything remarkable. Hard in this context meaning effort, and something that's not easy to complete. And core meaning center or essence of something. So hardcore is something that is not easy at the essence of it. For a video game, I thought, what's the video game that most people think of when you say hardcore? The first one that came to mind was Minecraft, which everyone has heard of Minecraft hardcore. Plenty of people have completed it, and some have even got guides on how to do it yourself. Minecraft is a great game to showcase hardcore mode, as it is both difficult and challenging in its own right. And that right there is what changed my thinking. The idea of hardcore is the experience to be challenging with consequences for mistakes that are ultimate. But this idea of a challenging experience doesn't come from Minecraft. And don't worry, we'll return to the old favourite soon. The idea of an experience in video games that ends in finality for your character isn't a new concept. Going back to the 80s and 90s with arcades, every arcade game is hardcore. Yes, you can pay for more lives as you go, or even have checkpoints in some, but ultimately, they are hard to complete. And of course, they are hard to beat because you'll want to put more coins in and try again and again and again. Arcade games are then the origins of hardcore experiences in video games. The desire to complete these games appears to be hardwired into us. But why do we continue to pay? Yes, arcade games are designed to make you want to come back through graphics and gameplay to make more money. But it's the experience that kept people coming back, the difficulty of the game and the promise of completion. As my research on this topic led me from arcade games to early personal video games, one particular video game and video game genre came to the forefront of my research. The game I speak of is called Rogue, the first and original roguelike. And yes, that is where the term comes from. Like many other games, Rogue created a genre all its own, and thanks to the nature of the game is why we are discussing it. For our hardcore explanation, the game was hard to master, challenging, and only one life per character, having to start again if you made a mistake and died. Of course, many other games have spawned genres all their own thanks to their unique gameplay, and although we won't be talking about them in this video at length, I will be making a video on that particular topic in the future, so please stay tuned. Rogue is often cited as being a hardcore experience with one life and one chance. But I hear you say, that's the origins of roguelikes, not hardcore. And yes, true. But also it is hardcore, if not only for the fact that roguelikes do not exist yet, making Rogue a hardcore game. But can we call it the first hardcore game? Or should we be looking for the game that offered hardcore settings to a standard game first? Well, the first game to offer hardcore settings in their base game was Diablo 2, offering hardcore mode to mainstream audiences and introducing the phrase hardcore to modern video gaming culture. It offered a new experience to players who wanted more of a challenge from the standard game. Now, Diablo 2 was not an easy video game by any means. At the time of release in 2000, there was no way to tell who or how long it took for someone to complete hardcore mode, but now, in more current times, the world record speedrun is a little over 3 hours to completion. Diablo then is the game that started a trend of offering a more challenging experience for players within their game. The other most notable game that uses the phrase hardcore as a setting change is Fallout New Vegas, a very different experience in comparison to Diablo. Fallout New Vegas is a survival exploration RPG in comparison to Diablo, which is a dungeon crawler RPG. The two games are very different from each other, however in the research both were important to talk about where hardcore is concerned. Whereas Diablo's hardcore experience showed developers listening to their player base and adding a feature meant they had new life and a new experience. The game Fallout New Vegas' hardcore mode was heavily inspired by Stalker, Call of Pripyat. which was more survival elements added to the game to make it more challenging, rather than changing the game to be harder through difficulty. Fallout changed the dynamics of the game to make a more difficult experience by adding survival mechanics to the game, including hunger and thirst. In today's gaming world, these survival mechanics are not considered hardcore, with games such as Ark, Conan, Valheim, 7 Days to Die, Far Cry, and The Forest, just to name a few, have all become a genre all their own and are not considered a hardcore experience anymore. Fallout offered the first of the hardcore experiences that was not standard then. Again, offering a harder experience, but also defining for us what hardcore is, showing through research that hardcore mode and hardcore experience are different depending on what is being offered for each video game. It then seems as though gamers have been seeking a challenging experience within video games for years, and are looking for a harder, more challenging game to satisfy this want. Now, for most of you, the mention of a hard to complete, difficult to master game, GG, get good, scrub, most people immediately think of Dark Souls. Souls-like games have been around since the early 2000s, with Demon's Souls in 2009 and then Dark Souls 1 in 2011, the genre solidifying itself as being a hard to master video game. However, no Souls-like game to date has offered hardcore mode. Considering that Souls-like games are the peak of difficult gaming experiences, I feel it's important to mention them, as the Souls series and Souls-like games are considered some of the most difficult games to master in modern video gaming, and most likely contribute to the growing desire of gamers to have a more challenging experience in other games. The origins of hardcore then are attached to the games themselves, and the experience that a person gets from a more challenging aspects of the game. Therefore, answering our first question, what are the origins of hardcore, also answers our second question, as hardcore is increasing the stakes of a video game based on mechanics through either difficulty or experience. We've also answered where hardcore came from, so the final questions about hardcore that need to be answered is why is it so popular? Now, to answer this question, we should talk about one of the most important aspects of hardcore experiences, and that is investment. Time investment into a game is the main appeal for many. The challenge mixed with the knowledge that you might have all your time wasted, but equally high chance that you might be rewarded for your effort. So hardcore games appeal to us on a basic level. Our lizard brains like the idea of doing something hard and being rewarded for that effort. Many people playing hardcore but hate restarting, myself included. But this punishment of restarting is just as important as getting to that peak. Understanding why people play hardcore is part of why it is so popular and why the game mode has become so popular in more recent years. Now, for all of those who are worried, we now return to Minecraft. For most people, it is one of the most popular hardcore games out there. Minecraft is a survival crafting game. The voxel elements, upbeat art style make it seem less intimidating, and is considered relatively easy to beat. People start Minecraft hardcore not necessarily to beat it, but to see how far they can get. What can they build, acquire, achieve, and do before they ultimately end up dying? This makes Minecraft unique in its hardcore experience. In Minecraft, standard hardcore means your hearts are harder to regenerate, the enemies hit harder, and are harder to defeat than standard. In other words, it's just a difficulty spike. Now, some people prefer to do what is called ultra hardcore, which in the case of Minecraft means you cannot regenerate hearts naturally at all. The term ultra hardcore comes from a group known as Minecraft, who coined the term for Minecraft specifically. This term has now become a way of saying that your hardcore experience is harder than normal hardcore. Ultra hardcore comes from Minecraft community and has been adopted throughout the gaming community, with many games adopting similar rules for their hardcore modes, or some people using self-imposed rules with their hardcore rule set. The reason we discuss Minecraft now and not before is because it is a good indication to show investment. Minecraft is already as a standard game that people put hours of investment into building houses, farms, and if you're in survival mode, also collecting the resources to build all of that. All this time is investment, and time investment over anything else. Now yes, there are lots of games that require this grind and time investment. However, Minecraft has entered the community zeitgeist and therefore more culturally relevant for this topic. So to answer our final question about hardcore, why is it so popular? Well, from what I've seen and what I have researched, hardcore began as a way of more modern games to emulate the original roguelikes arcade-style play, adding more consequences for actions. And as we have explored in this video, the community of people looking to make their gaming experience more difficult or challenging is increasing as video games become more popular. This may be due to the fact that more modern games lack the replayability that older games had, or that people want to replay their favourite game with more of a challenge. Hardcore is something that people enjoy and creates moments in which people can connect through their shared pain and joy. Like most things in life, pain and joy bring people together. In more recent years, older games that have self-imposed hardcore rules have been adding new game modes for difficult experiences. This may be due to the increased popularity or money. In the case of World of Warcraft, you have the OnlyFans hardcore WoW that eventually created the classic hardcore we have now. But it is most notably recognised as the beginnings of the hardcore WoW scene, even though the rules for hardcore WoW and Iron Man already existed beforehand. They were self-imposed and added through add-ons or mods to the servers or the game to enable this experience in comparison to the new hardcore WoW classic with these features included. They were self-imposed or added through add-ons or mods to the servers or game to enable this experience in comparison to the new hardcore WoW classic with these features included. With streamers and influencers joining OnlyFans and playing WoW, it was a way to bring back classic WoW and added a challenging experience to an old, beloved game. This is of course why I decided to make this video with my own dalliance into hardcore WoW. As you have seen and heard in the story, I was a classic WoW player, level 60 raider, blah 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 blah, so on and so on. This shows how the community has changed over recent years to include hardcore or different experiences to older games that still have a large following. To either bring an old game back to life or bring a new experience to that game. The gaming community as a whole likes new experiences and especially challenges that make you look at your favourite game in a new way. For example, my experience with WoW Hardcore is completely different to how I would normally play WoW, changing my appreciation for the game, especially the classic version. This is the heart of hardcore mode popularity. New experiences, new viewpoints, and more importantly, community or shared suffering. The popularity of hardcore has come from people wanting nothing more than to play their old favourites in a new, exciting way. I hope after watching this video you have started to think about your favourite game and how you might be able to make a hardcore experience in it, or in an existing game that offers hardcore mode you might now give a try. Join a Discord and make some new friends, and hopefully you enjoy your new hardcore experience. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Future Julian here. I would also just like to say that the reason I make these videos is not only for your enjoyment, but also so that we can start a discourse. So please, I encourage you to comment down below. Tell me what you think about this issue. Tell me what you think I got right and what I got wrong. I'm sure a lot of you have something to say that I got wrong, as is traditional with YouTube. But on top of that, anything you say creates this discourse, and this discourse is what brings us together as a community, allowing us to continue these discussions and continue these topics onwards, progressing them, creating them, and moving them forwards into video game history, allowing us to not only catalogue something that we love, but learn more about it as we go on. So as Past Me already said, hope to see you in the next video. And remember, like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.